ladies and gentlemen, not all deaths are bad. Because when we invade Sierra Leone to stop Charles Taylor from killing their civilians, that's okay. When we invade, for instance, later in the future, say Kim Jong-il from stopping the deaths for people in North Korea, that's also okay, ladies and gentlemen. Sanctity of life is never an absolute concept. So in order to answer that question, whether or not this is a right for justice to be upheld by death, I'm going to answer one question, which is whether or not this is fair for three actors. One for the perpetrator, second for the victim, last for the society. Before going on there, let's talk about the other parts of the debate, which is about the impacts on whether or not this policy is good. Because they say deterrence effect does not happen in death penalties. This is first point. Now, we don't understand how this assumption stands, because really, deterrence effect does not exist. People do still want to traffic drug as much as they possible, even with death penalty. We don't think so. The deterrence effect might not be absolutely working, but it doesn't mean that it's absolutely absent. There is, to some extent, people who are deterred from doing those heinous crimes because there's death penalty, and therefore the deterrence effect reaches a surmountable effect of effectivity, ladies and gentlemen. So we think in that case, it is still important to recognize that at least there is some element of deterrence effect. Second of all, the closing government's extension is about how this is glorification for terrorists. Now they stop at terrorists. Ladies and gentlemen, death penalties is not only applied to terrorists, it's also applied to drug traffickers. Now where's the idea of glorification put in the ideas of drug traffickers? Or in the idea of serial murders? Like what kind of glorification in this? Because society hates the notion of terrorism. The society thinks that the law is right now beyond and stronger than terrorists when they think that the law is protecting them from terrorists by killing these terrorists. So we ultimately think that the glorification does not work that simply. Yes?
Now, if you're speaking about all jurisdiction and they neglected this from opening government, they are neglecting China on pornography, they're neglecting Sudan on prostitution. Please,
we don't neglect that. We say that all jurisdictions should be able to define what system is most just for them by themselves. They're the one who's neglecting those differences. They're the one who is imposing Western or other European beliefs of human rights, of the sanctity of life to everyone across the globe. And how is that fair? Which is exactly my next question. First of all, let's talk about the perpetrators, whether or not this is fair for perpetrators. The Fermi House's catchy line, two wrongs does not make one right. Well, prove that the government is another wrong. Because if the mafias are killing civilians or are killing criminals, they're wrong because they're outside of the law. But we think that the government is not another wrong. Government is right. Why is the government right? Because the government has already a system of court. They say the court is wrong because juries can be biased. Ladies and gentlemen, they completely negate that there are mitigating circumstances to this idea on how, first of all, juries are being picked up by prosecutors and defenders in the same chance, for instance. On how in court trials you have cross-examination. On how the defenders have the right to present their own case, to present their own defense, to present evidences that can prevent them from getting that capital punishment. Ladies and gentlemen, so if they can prove that they don't deserve capital punishment, that their crimes are not as heinous, they can prove it, ladies and gentlemen, through the systems of court. If there are faulty courts, there are always an imperfect notion in the system. It doesn't even have to abolish other systems. Teddy then come up here, Hawaii University did a research in the 90s that 67 people died innocently. Well, 67 out of what, 1,000? And not to mention that this research is done in the 90s, like 2 decades ago. Ladies and gentlemen, we're not sure this is relevant. More importantly, right now, maybe we have getting better on this idea. Ladies and gentlemen, an irreversible punishment is actually a stronger incentive for investigators to create a better system of investigation. Now, if you want a stronger system of investigation, then perhaps you would have to expose the police to make sure that their evidences are true, to make sure that everything is correct and put in place, or if not so, they would do something really, really unfair. So we ultimately believe that there is a stronger incentive for justice to be better, and court trial has been fair enough. What they've forgotten, ladies and gentlemen, is about how the notion of retribution does not happen. Because they say, you know, the notion of retribution has always been, when someone has exerted a negative force towards a society, then the government has the right to impose also a negative force upon them, ladies and gentlemen, in terms of taking away their rights, which leads me to my second prong of fairness, which is for the victims. We think that victims react differently in different contexts. For instance, in Saudi Arabia, you put people in jail for stealing, they will laugh. They say, this is not justice, because the true justice is Sharia system. In Texas, you put heinous killers into life imprisonment, they will laugh at it because they say, this is not justice. My government is not protecting me because I want death penalty. That is a true form of retribution for me. To this they say the society cannot act simply based on what they feel. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a feeling. The element of closure for victims is an element for them to attain level of personal security, for them to be able to feel safe again being back in the society, ladies and gentlemen, after the heinous criminals that have been inflicted upon them, and to feel that the government is protecting them. And this is a cultural perception. To laugh at these cultural perceptions and say, this is rubbish, is similar with you degrading the beliefs that these institutions or these jurisdictions or people within this context have, and we're not sure that is the way to go. Why is that not the way to go? Because we are the West, for instance. We are the UN, for instance. We are a liberal democracy. If we believe in democracy, then why do we say that one size fits all? Then why do we say sanctity of life fits everyone in the globe? Don't you think that the one being the hypocrite now is the government bench, because they're trying to impose sanctity of life to everyone across the globe, regardless of whether or not they're culturally okay with that, regardless of whether or not they believe in that concept, regardless of whether or not they will feel adequate with that being embedded in the law system. Ladies and gentlemen, we believe that the law should reflect the views and the wishes of the society. If the society believes that capital punishment is the one that will adequately salvage themselves from the heinousness that has been inflicted upon them, so be it. We think that is fair enough because society has the idea to believe in their system of law, and they have the right to feel secure being in part of the legal system. Now lastly, the idea about tax. They say tax is just money, it's not important. It's not about the money that is important, it's about social obligation. That when you do life imprisonment, the society would have that obligation to pay for these people's life and these people's welfare, ladies and gentlemen. And this is too much of a burden. Why, if they have been taken away so much rights from them, society still have to fulfill this sort of social obligation and still have to pay for these people and be burdened by these people? If the society chooses otherwise, that's okay. Ultimately, with respect to Will and John particularly, we think that an anti-death penalty is a European concept. We don't think that this concept fits everyone across the globe. If people have different cultures and different beliefs in different contexts, that should be okay, because that is what democracy is about. Because that is what being, paying back and retribution towards the victim is about. So in order for justice to be fair to victims, we have to oppose.